#1.
Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hanson Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Happy Friday, final hour of the program. David James is going to join us coming up here in just a moment. And, here's the thing with DJ. We're never really sure. A lot of times we'll kind of map out where we want to go with our guests. And with DJ, there's no roadmap. You just you cue him up and you let him go. And so we'll chat with DJ coming up here in just a moment. Cole Bagley will join us at 2:30, talk a little NHL with him, the playoffs, and a little bit more about the Utah Mammoth as well and what the offseason could look like for them. So, and we're down here at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. I want you to check out these Mazdas, price to move. Let's get to these are great vehicles ready to go. Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Daly Mazda Southtown right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Next person to come on by here and test drive a vehicle, I will give you the full goodie bucket. What do you think, Brant? All the candy in the bucket goes to the next person who comes in and takes a test drive. Everything we have is yours. Next test drive. It's all yours. I mean, we got high-quality stuff in there, too. Snickers, Twix, Reese's. We got the peanut butter cups. Yeah, that's no big deal. All right, so joining us now, David James. DJ, what's your hierarchy of candy bars? Like, if you're stealing stuff out of your kid's old Halloween bucket, what's your hierarchy there?
Well, first off, I'll take a lot of stuff. Don't kid yourself.
No, I know. Yeah.
I definitely like the Snickers. I definitely like the Almond Joy. Those two are probably at the top. I would never take candy corn. That's a despicable candy. Hershey's, the Hershey bars are always good.
Just like the old school Hershey?
Yeah, the old school Hershey, the thin bars.
Yeah.
Snap into sections. Those are always good.
All right, so I was saying when you come on, there's really no roadmap. There's a lot of times where I want to bring, people on and we have a specific topic. But with DJ, it's just like we go a shotgun approach. I'm going to throw a bunch of things at you, and you go crazy.
That's because I'm anybody.
Yes.
I mean, when Hans is gone, we schedule everybody and anybody. Bowler, you're not anybody.
You like how you like how Lloyd tried to save me from myself there a little bit.
He's like, when Lloyd called me, he said, "Man, I was hoping you weren't listening." I'm like, "I'm always listening. The show's brilliant. Of course, I'm listening." I
don't know. We don't talk as much these days. If there's an excuse to bring DJ on.
If you check your phone, I called you about something specific, and you didn't want to talk about it, so you blew me off and didn't call me back. I
don't have any recollection of that.
Check your phone while I'm giving you some 5-minute answer to a 12-second question. All
right. Yegor Damon. What would he look like in a Jazz uniform? Should the Jazz be interested? I heard you guys talk about that this morning.
He would look like a 6'9" guy who can really pass, who is so long. Man, if you can run a team full of 6'9" guys out there, the court gets so small, right? You got a chance to rebound. You got a chance to tip so many passes. He's a really good passer. The only question is he going to be able to shoot? And, yes, the standard is 40% shooters, but with everything he can do, honestly, if he could get to 36 or 37%, he could be a really good NBA player. You don't have to shoot 40 to be really good. I mean, that's the gold standard, and there's probably 40 guys, give or take 5 or 10 every year, who shoot 40% in the league. If he got there, I mean, wow, that would be awesome. So I can see getting him. The problem is I don't see how the Jazz get him, because I really think he's the second half of the lottery kind of guy. Now, if he slips, they could probably trade up from 21 to maybe they can get into that 14, 15, 16 range pretty easily. I think if you're going from 21 and you're trying to go to 8 or 9, that seems like a pretty big ask.
Yeah,
and I don't think he's a top 5 guy.
Yeah, 5's too high, 21's too low, so that's kind of right there in the middle. But it would be interesting to see how that plays out and what his impact is on the league next year, because you're right, and there's 6'9" guy with handles like that, they just don't grow on trees.
They really don't. And bigger teams have an advantage, And I think at minimum, you look at like the kind of role Sean Livingston played, and he could have been a really good player. Who knows? He got
good
hurt,
pull.
Multiple ACLs and all that. But he came off the bench for the Warriors, and I think he won 3 titles with them. I think he was there he might have only been there for 2, but I think he was there for 3. Yeah. And I always thought that's such good bench minutes. Kind of bench minutes Denver only gets, intermittently. And just such good bench minutes. They bring in Iguodala and they bring in him, and Curry's out and Thompson's out, and these guys, they're smooth running machine, And a point guard who knows how to play is just really valuable, even if you can't shoot and get other people easy shots. But when everyone goes under on the pick and roll, and you're passing up 20-footers. I mean, we all watch Ricky Rubio play, and right now he's a bigger Ricky Rubio unless he can improve his shooting.
So on Monday night, which, by the way, at 9:32, I did miss a call. I did not know that. I apologize.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Were we talking – was it lottery? What were we going to talk about?
We were going to talk about something you don't want to talk about on the air.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. I will call you. I will call you at about 3 o'clock then, and we will.
Okay. It'll probably have to be a little later, but yeah, we'll talk later today.
Well, you call me when you're available, and I promise I'll answer it this time.
I will do that.
All right, so Monday night, we're on the air. You were on in the early part of JJ and Alex, and then I was on in the 5 o'clock hour, and I saw the envelopes. And when we started seeing teams fall, we knew it wasn't good for the Jazz. And sure enough, they ended up picking 5th overall, which mathematically was the likelihood of what was what happened was mathematically likely. It still doesn't change the fact that, boy, this fan base is not in a good place right now.
Both those things can be true, and both those things are true. The emotion of it, I mean, it stings. So I don't blame people for being disappointed. You hope for the best and you prepare for the worst. So, Jay-Z came out and talked about, they knew five could happen and they're preparing for it. But in the moment when that happens, you got to allow people, 5 or 10 minutes or a day or whatever for their pity party. And then you got to move on, right? And what happened is what's supposed to happen. The league doesn't want teams tanking, so they drew up a system where even if you're the worst, there's an almost 50% chance you draft 5th. And now we've seen multiple teams fall from 1st to 5th. I mean, we see it, and then we see it again, and then we see it again. We know this can happen. This is what it was designed to do, so the teams wouldn't tank. And guess what? Having an elite player is so important, and Cooper Flagg is so obviously just expected to be one of those elite guys that Utah decided to tank, Washington decided to tank, Charlotte decided to tank, New Orleans committed to it too late, but they were tanking. So, they've diagnosed a problem. They've come up with a solution. The solution doesn't work. The thing keeps happening. Now, the truth is the league is making phenomenal amounts of money. So if it is a problem, it's a small speed bump. It's a small pothole. But nonetheless, I get you want no potholes. So they're trying to figure out how to fix it. But as long as there's 5 players on the court and one player can play 40 minutes and have the ball in his hands every time, people are really going to want that guy. I think they're going to tank. I don't know what the league can really do to stop it other than say all 30 teams have a 3.3% chance. Good luck. And they're not going to do that because then when the Lakers are good or the Bulls are good or the Knicks are good and they get the pick, everyone's going to scream that it's rigged. Well, if it's rigged, why did New Orleans get Zion Williams? I mean, why did it send Zion to the 50th biggest TV market in America? That doesn't make any sense to me. And if the whole thing's rigged, why is Oklahoma City playing a Game 7 to go to the Western Conference Finals? Why is Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals? Why is
the Pacers
in Indiana so deep? It's like, I mean, New York, Boston, I get. There's marquee teams. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. It sucks. There have been a lot of good players drafted 5th or later, and the Jazz just need to figure out who that guy is in this lottery.
So does that alter the plan for next year? Because obviously, Victor's been in San Antonio for a couple of years, and they haven't made the playoffs now. I know he shut it down in February this year, but it's not like San Antonio is immediately a playoff contender once they got Victor. So even if the Jazz got Cooper Flagg, they weren't going to be a playoff team next year unless they made some other additions.
Right. You don't get – I mean, everybody wants instant gratification, but even that's too much. I mean, look at LeBron's first year. Look at Michael Jordan's first year. Look at Shaq's first year. you don't get to go to the NBA Finals with a rookie unless the rookie is A, Magic Johnson, and B, going to a team that already has Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and has a bunch of other veterans.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably not drafting another Magic. That's just too big an ask. And even if you are, the all-time leading scorer at that point isn't on the roster. So, you don't get to partner Magic with a 6-time MVP. Sorry. But
no, you don't.
Lines up for San Antonio to have a great decade.
There's no doubt.
Year. Yeah, Duncan and Bird won their second year.
But my thought is, with this Jazz team, does it really alter what they do next year? Because I still think they bottom out next year, and now they definitely probably bottom out next year because you don't want to convey that eighth, that pick that you traded in the Derek Favors thing. So you want to make sure you hold on to that. And then the draft's probably a little bit better next year, a little bit deeper, at least according to multiple reports. But ultimately, this fan base all year long was on board saying, all right, we get it. It sucks, but we get it. And everybody would go home after a Jazz game and put on Duke highlights and be like, okay, this is why we're doing this. And then we knew it was 14%. Everybody in the Jazz organization knew it was just a 14% chance, but I don't know if your average fan out there really knew it was only a 14% chance of getting number one. And so I think the realization you could go through all of this and still pick number 5 next year, and that might be a little harder for this fan base to swallow that coming up next year after getting burnt this year.
Sorry. I don't know what else to say. That could happen. You're right. It's a fact. As PK likes to say, yeah, that's a fact. I don't know how to argue with that. That could absolutely happen. It is supposed to be a deeper draft. I heard, was it you or was it Jake and Ben were talking about the top? I think it was Jake and Ben. We're talking about how the top 3 are just supposed to be awesome.
Yeah.
Boozer's probably, as it sits now, Carlos's son Cam is probably the 3rd pick in the draft, and that's a player you got to get pretty excited about if you're adding into your team. So, it's even better next year. And will they get it? Who knows? I think the only thing it really speeds up, the only thing it really changes is Markkanen and Collins.
Yes.
And they make good deals for those 2 guys and get young players / draft picks. And can they really hit it out of the park? They were reluctant to trade those guys and feel like they got 75 cents on the dollar. Just like they were reluctant to trade Clarkson for 75 cents on the dollar. Now, Clarkson's past his due date. I don't see them getting much of anything. I suspect he's here for a year, then he's a free agent, and that's the end of Jordan Clarkson in Utah, I would think. But I do think that these guys who are, once you're late 20s, Sexton, he's a little younger, so maybe they still hold on to him. But I will be intrigued to see if they trade the veterans, then they don't have to hold anybody back. They can just let the young guys go, and they're probably not that good. I think they do have to make sure they're one of 3 worst teams in the league next year because that guarantees they draft no lower than 8th, and they don't want to give that pick to Oklahoma City.
What is the likelihood that Markkanen's on this roster come first game of the year?
It's hard to know. My guess is he's probably not, but they're not. I don't think they're desperate to get rid of him, so they're just, like I said, they're not going to take 70 cents on the dollar. So knowing whether he's here or not depends on knowing who's offering for him. And these things tend to be, the most valuable piece goes up for auction first, and then the next most valuable. So until Giannis Antetokounmpo is done and we know where he's going, we don't know who the bidders might be for Markkanen, I suspect. I mean, maybe it'll come in a different order, but that's my guess, is that everybody wants to be in the Giannis sweepstakes. We'll wait for the Giannis sweepstakes. This is what happened with Darren Williams. It was the Carmelo Anthony sweepstakes.
Yep.
Kevin O'Connor called both teams and said, hey, somebody's not going to get him, and whoever that is, start thinking about a deal for Darren Williams. You can pivot if you don't get him. And after Denver moved Carmelo, then it was the Jazz turn to move Darren Williams. And, the Durant deal, the Antetokounmpo deal, and then we'll see who else is making moves. And we'll see what the Jazz can get from Markkanen. I would guess right now it's more likely than not he's gone, but I'd have to know what's on the other side of the deal before I guarantee anything.
David James right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You hear him every morning with Patrick Kinahan, 6 to 10, right here on the Zone. All right, so if I were to set an over-under on wins next year for the Jazz at 23.5, what are you taking?
Under.
Wow.
You want me to think about it? Hold on. Carry the one. Under.
All right. Love it.
I think there are going to be a lot of teams tanking. I think they have an eye on those other teams. I don't think they want to risk having a 4th, 5th, or 6th worst record and drafting 9, 10, or 11.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Then the pick goes to Oklahoma City, and they're sitting there watching everybody else get a really good rookie, and they're getting nobody.
Yeah. DJ, you're the best, man. I know you got to run.
No worries. Anytime, Scotty. We'll talk later tonight. You're the man. And, anytime you need anybody to fill in when Hands is gone, I'm anybody.
You passive-aggressive little punks.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you, Lloyd. That was awesome. Well played, Lloyd Cole. You're the man.
He is the man. Thanks, DJ. We'll chat later.
Talk to you later. See you, Scotty.
All right. See ya. There he is, the great David James, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. That was not intended to be a shot at anybody, the anybody and everybody line, but I could see how that could be misconstrued.
You need to go back and re-listen to it, because right away I was like, oh, don't say that. We got Bowler right here, and I know Bowler joins us every
but that's
Friday.
Bowler's, it's his Friday
It's
spot.
his Friday, so that
Yeah.
was okay. I should have been more protective of the other people that were joining us today.
Yeah, when you hopped in, immediately, because, you don't jump in on interviews very often, but when you jumped in and said, but not you, Bowler, and I was like,
You're not anybody, Bowler.
Oh, when Lloyd has to come in with the cleanup and say, hey, we got a problem on aisle 9, we need you to fix this, and I was like, oh.
And
ouch.
everybody else on the show, you're not anybody. You're important to what we do.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Lloyd, 23.5 wins next year for the Jazz. Over, under?
I'm going to take the under. I mean, it's going to be another rough year.
The thing is, it's the right thing to do.
It is, and Jazz fans aren't going to want to hear that. And just think about how miserable it was this year for us to talk about it, to watch it.
Yeah.
And to have to do it again. And by the way, there's plenty of teams that have done this multiple times. Multiple times. And the Jazz have only had to do it, well, now this will be twice.
I mean, they've messed around a little bit by, the previous 2 years, but really jumping into that deep end of the pool, last year was their first year.
Yeah, they really dove in, and you're like, oh, okay. And that's fine. You need to do what you got to do.
But, to steal a line from our friend Craig Bullerjack, buckle up, folks, because, it's going to be another one. And eventually down the line when hopefully who the Jazz pick at 5 ends up playing really well, and then whoever you get in next year's draft ends up playing really well, then you're like, okay, it was worth it. But it might be a bit, and it might be the next year after that too. And maybe that 5 pick, by the way, maybe that 5 pick turns into be all of a sudden where you see, okay, this is like a Donovan Mitchell type. Where you're like, okay, we have a building piece right here, and then you go from there, and then you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, let's be honest here. Donovan Mitchell was not expected to be Donovan Mitchell. What was he picked? 13th, 14th, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I want to say it was 12.
So, there will be opportunities. There will be all-star players that will be taken at 5 or below in this year's NBA draft. It's just going to happen.
Now, 13th. You're right, 13th.
So those opportunities are going to be available, whether it's Con, Nipple, or whether it's, go through any of these guys. There's going to be really special players. Now, I don't know if they'll be franchise-altering players like we all anticipate Cooper Flagg will be, but certainly a guy that can be a very special player for your team for several years to come. Jake's walking right by us.
And by the way, like we talked about, it's not about where the Jazz landed, with this whole draft lottery. It's where the Mavs jump to.
I know.
That's the biggest. That's your problem.
That's the thing that hurt the most.
Yeah.
Jake's on the air.
So tubed out about it.
We had to dump you once a couple remotes ago.
I'm watching myself now. I was just very passionate.
Yeah,
very passionate.
Yes, you were. It was about the Raiders too, wasn't it?
Yes.
It didn't help that Scotty was pushing your buttons.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong, Lloyd. He is so
as he does every day.
Yeah, I'm the bully on this show.
You are the bully.
That's not true.
I've seen you bully Hands like crazy and Lloyd all the time.
If there's a victim on the show, it's this guy, me.
Okay.
Wow, I'm with you on this one, Lloyd. I think Scotty's full of bullpucky.
He likes to play the victim, but he is far from it.
I tell you what, if you're out there and you're driving around, you're thinking, man, I'm hearing Jake. I know he's going to give me a good deal, but I'm upside down. I'm in a lease. I got credit issues. Whatever the case is, you've sseen all the stories. Everybody's stories. Everybody has their own story, and you don't judge. You're like, all right, let's find a way to make it work.
Oh yeah, trust me. If you think it's embarrassing, don't be embarrassed. You know what I mean? Because I've seen it all. I've heard it all. I've dealt with it all. You know what I mean? Your story may be different than some, but probably a lot like a whole bunch of other people out there that have had to have help in the past. And, that's what we're here to do. Whether you're negative equity, whether you have bad credit, whether you're just looking for a fantastic deal, whatever it is, come down here. I'm going to throw this out here real quick. We've gotten busy, as you can tell, which is absolutely fantastic. But like I said, $2,000 over market value on your trade. And then I'm going to do an additional $2,000 off on any new car.
Now, can we
stack those?
Those?
Absolutely. That's $4,000 right there.
Bam. Let's go.
We got to sell some new cars.
So $2,000 off a brand new vehicle and $2,000 more for your trade-in.
Yeah.
Come on, folks. That's going to save you a ton of money.
Only today and tomorrow. And tomorrow for that deal.
And by the way, if you think you can go to any Mazda dealership and get that, no. That's only Jake. Jake is the only guy that's going to offer that right now here at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown.
Yeah, I got to sell a whole bunch of new cars. Come on, I just took the family to Disneyland. And that cost me way too much money.
Yeah.
So, just ridiculous. Just for one day, too. Man.
Crazy what they're doing to people down there.
I'm telling you. Now, see, I'm trying to make you save extra money so you can take your families too.
Yeah, so you can take that $4,000 and get maybe half of a day pass at Disneyland.
You can definitely go on a nice road trip in your brand new car with great gas mileage, and be able to spoil your family a little bit.
Let's do it. By the way, I'm looking at one of those 30. Oh, we do?
What?
Hey. Jake's here with us, Lloyd's with us, and guess who else is with us? Hans Olsen. Hey, buddy.
I'm actually standing right behind home plate watching batting warm-up, and just took the whole tour of Fenway. I got to sit up on the Green Monster, and we just been rolling through this tour for the last, hour and a half. This is pretty amazing. I got to give it to you, Scotty. You nailed it, man. I think this is one of the more amazing venues that I've ever been in. It's pretty historic.
The cathedral of baseball. That Wrigley. There's only a couple of those places that exist. How is Boston treating you though overall?
Oh, it's good. Boston is amazing. It's amazing food. We actually spent the entire morning in Salem at the witch trials. So we did the whole Salem tour. And that was incredible. It's been one of the coolest trips so far. You're right, man. This is one of the best places to visit. The people have been cool. The people have been amazing. And the driving, not so much. The freeways, not so much. I've almost been in 5 accidents, but it's just amazing.
You must not be wearing your Yankees cap.
Hey, by the way, we just got the whole tutorial of the longest home run here. 1946, 503 feet.
Really?
And, and they've actually got a seat that's red up in the stands to mark where it hit. And it actually hit a fan in the head in 1946, and I guess it caused a lot of problems. But they make the seat red, and you can buy the seat, but it's the most expensive seat in the house. But I was up on that Green Monster, that thing that sits on top of the green wall. They say that that's the best seat in all of sports, all football, all baseball. that it's been voted multiple times by any sports fan as the best seat in all sports, which is pretty sweet.
Where are you sitting at tonight? Are you, because usually you go what, third base line?
Usually third base line, but I literally two rows up behind home plate.
Oh.
Hans, that's the only reason I'm going to say it's okay that you're not here at the dealership today, because you're at Fenway Park. Like, that really matters. But, hey, just wanted to say that.
I miss you, Jakey. Miss you. I know you guys got to jump the break, and I got to tell you, this is worth it if you make it out here.
Take a lot of pictures, man. Can't wait to get you back.
Will do. See you guys.
All right, there he is. Hans Olsen, live from Fenway.
How would that be right now?
That's a little bit of a flex.
That is a huge flex.
Yeah.
And in weather, I think
Second
there's
row.
probably fantastic.
Yeah. Like normally we're third, but today we're just two rows off.
Yeah, we're two rows off a home plate. No big deal.
Oh, boy. That's awesome. Good for him.
They're going to serve us food and everything else.
Well, I'll tell you what. For everybody who comes on by here, we won't give you Red Sox tickets, but Jake's going to give you $4,000.
You can buy as many tickets as you want.
Yeah, there you go. $2,000 more for your trade-in, and then $2,000 off every new vehicle. Come down here. It's Tim Daly, Mazda Southtown, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The Hans Olsen and Scotty G. That's right. Yeah! On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hey, make sure to join the show. Coming up on Tuesday, we'll be out and about at Sound Sleep Medical from noon to 3, 8941 South, 700 East in Sandy. All right. Joining us now, NHL, Utah Mammoth, beat writer for KSLSports.com, Cole Bagley, kind enough to join us. Cole, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. You getting used to the Utah Mammoth? I almost said hockey club again, but I'll get it figured out here eventually.
Yeah, it's been taking some time to get used to, just that muscle memory, right, of saying Utah Hockey Club. I've had to catch myself a handful of times, but no, it's coming along, and here, sooner rather than later, Mammoth will fully be that muscle, that same muscle memory, and I think it's a great name. So, as soon as I can stop saying Utah Hockey Club, I think we'll be in a good spot.
What kind of talent will be available for the Mammoth with that fourth pick?
Some really good talent. I think when you look at this draft, it's not a phenomenal draft. There's not a Macklin Celebrini, a Connor Bedard, a Sidney Crosby, or a Connor McDavid available in this class. But, there's players that I think are close to the same type of talent as a Logan Cooley or a Dylan Guenther, guys that could potentially be stars, have inklings of superstardom within them if things go right. So, Utah was very fortunate to jump 10 spots to number 4 overall, and I think they're going to get a very impactful player that can help not only push them towards, competing for a Stanley Cup over the next few years, but, potentially prolong that window.
When you look at the talent that could be available, is this still on a normal timeline of, 2, maybe 3 years before we see them contribute, or are there guys that could contribute fairly quickly for this club?
I think it's a normal timeline. Selecting at 4th is very similar to, I think 5th and 6th. Obviously, Utah picked TJ Ginla 6 overall last year, and he's probably a guy that's going to take 2 or 3 seasons, especially given his injury, to get to the NHL level. I think selecting at 4, this player will probably be on a similar timeline. I think at best 1 to 2 years, but most likely 2 or 3, and not necessarily because the class is not good enough, but because look at Utah's roster right now, and the free agents that they're going to be bringing in, that takes up roster spots, and then they've got a couple prospects coming over from the KHL that are about ready to go. So, just considering where Utah is at in terms of their process, the roster spots they already have filled, I just think that regardless of who they get, it's probably a 2 or 3 year process before we see, this player wearing the Mammoth sweater.
I know he dealt with some injuries, but overall, were you able to keep track of Tej and his development in his first year?
Yeah, he. I think when he played, he was taking the steps that the front office really wanted him to see in terms of producing, continuing to better himself offensively, scoring, doing what he does best, but then also, improving on his, complete 200-foot game, being a player that they can rely upon defensively. I know that's an area that he needs to improve. So, when he was out on the ice, he was doing well, and I think tracking in the right direction. He's still a player that, given his talent and his skill set, the front office is not going to put expectations on him coming into camp this fall. So, he's a player that if things go perfectly right, hey, he might see some time in the NHL. But I still think, given his injury as a bit of a setback, I expect him to go back to the juniors this next season. And if he can perform at a high level and do what they want him to do, maybe next year will be the better opportunity.
So, obviously, health was a big issue with this team last year, and I firmly believe if they were healthy for the majority of the season, they're probably a playoff team. Number one, would you agree with that? And then number two, what are the areas of improvement they need to make sure that they are a playoff team next year?
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. To not have Sean Durzi for 80% of the season or more was tough. To be without John Marino for about 60 to 65, and then the injuries that they sustained up front later in the year, it was tough for this team to find consistency. The lines were ever changing. The pairs on the defense were always kind of a rotating door, and so if they could have been just a little bit more healthy, maybe if Durzi doesn't go down or if Marino comes back earlier, this team may have been able to make up that difference of what was it, 8 points. So, I'd agree with that. And then to answer your second question, there's, I think, really two things this club needs to, figure out. First of all, and I think this may be something that's being overlooked, is they need another goaltender. And that's no disrespect to Connor Ingram or anything like that, but where he's at in his recovery process, which I don't even know his status. I don't think the team even knows his status. That's a big unknown. And so, they've got to bring in somebody better than, the goaltenders that they called upon later in the year up from the AHL. They've got to go find a legitimate, 1B or, B type of backup goaltender to Vejmelka. So that's going to be something important that I think some people are maybe not really thinking about, but it's common sense, right? If Ingram's not ready to go, somebody else is, has to fulfill that position. And the AHL guys are just, that's not quite the level of talent that you want to be relying on for most of the year. Second, they need size and scoring up front. A 2C would be awesome. Barrett Hayton was good, but not exactly what you needed a 2C. And then just more size. Utah was, a relatively small team, especially amongst their forwards. So if they can get, a player that could play center for them and who is going to create issues, near the painted area and close to the net and score goals, that would be a phenomenal addition. A player that comes to mind, upcoming free agent, is a guy like Sam Bennett. That's kind of how it's what he prides himself in, is just being kind of a menace in that area, creating problems, screening the goalie, getting dirty goals in that area, being physical. So we'll see if Utah can enter, those sweepstakes amongst, I think some other top free agents.
So for those of us that are really watching the NHL playoffs to learn more about teams, not just for entertainment, but just the education on the league, like I'm doing and Hans is doing, this Toronto-Florida series seems like it's gotten another level of personal and another level of physicality. Is that true, or is this just what we get sometimes in the playoffs in the NHL? Because this one seems a little different than others.
Yeah, I think this is kind of what just naturally happens in the playoffs. I wouldn't necessarily call these two teams rivals. I feel like kind of the rivalry in the playoffs over the last 2 years involving Florida has mostly been Boston, but obviously with Boston not being in the playoffs, somebody else needed to fulfill that role, and Toronto's kind of taken it on. And it can start really fast and then rev up to just bitter hatred, and that's what we've seen in this series. It kind of started early on with some dirty hits. And Florida kind of prides themselves on being one of the dirtiest, if not the dirtiest team in the National Hockey League. It's just their brand. They're big bullies who, at every moment when a referee is not looking, they're jabbing you with their stick, or, they're pulling on your jersey, or they're tugging you, or they're finishing a check that is a little bit questionable. And that seemed to set off the Leafs, who responded, but they got caught in responding. And it's just kind of set things off. And I think, too, there's a lot of frustration for the Maple Leafs in this series. They have kind of become a team, a very, very good regular season team with some of the best players in the NHL, and Austin Matthews and William Nylander, Mitch Marner, but they just can't seem to pull it together in the playoffs. And so they go up 2-0. They're on the edge of, going up 3-0. Then suddenly Florida storms back. They take 3 games in a row, and it's 3-2. So it's just this perfect kind of, whirlwind of emotion and physicality. And, the two teams dislike each other, but generally, that can kind of come out of nowhere in the playoffs. You could have two teams that don't really play each other, don't have any issues with each other, and all it takes is one moment and suddenly bitter rivals, which is fun.
No, there's no doubt. You surprised that the Hurricanes bounced the Capitals last night?
Yeah. I think, to me, that's the biggest surprise of these playoffs right now is, the Caps were one of the best teams in the National Hockey League for most of the year. They seemed kind of destined for a deep playoff run, especially the way that Ovechkin has been playing and, the type of goaltending they were getting during the regular season. I mean, they didn't lose consecutively very often, but came into the series. And I think what else is surprising is, Carolina is kind of playing a different style of hockey than we're seeing across the board. The teams that have, gone the distance so far, the teams that play a little bit more physical, who pride themselves on, getting pucks in deep and crashing and forechecking and, that brand of hockey, which is, what Dallas does and Florida does. And I think Edmonton plays kind of a hybrid style of that, whereas, Carolina is not as big of a team, but they found a way to really hurt. They found a way to really hurt the Caps with their speed and capitalized, if you will. And now they're on to the Eastern Conference Final. So, they'll await the winner of Toronto and Florida, and it just seems like, Florida is going to come out of that one.
Yeah. Cole, appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time, and enjoy the playoffs. We'll chat again maybe here soon about getting a little bit closer to Lord Stanley Cups. Should be a lot of fun.
All right, thanks. Enjoy the playoffs.
You got it. Cole Bagley, Hockey Insider, KSLSports.com. Take a break. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Wrapping up another edition of the show. Big thanks to everyone who helped us out. Anybody and everybody was on the show today. And they were all great. They were all fantastic. Right, Lloyd?
Yes, they were. They were amazing. Thanks for everybody's help.
Yes. We'll be back with you coming up on Monday. And Hans will be out again on Monday, but we'll get him back on Tuesday.
We'll bring any schmuckatelli that wants to come on there and talk.
Joe Schmuckatelli that wants to be on the show. We'd love to have you hanging out with us.
We'll have you Monday.
Just call Lloyd and say, hey, I want to be on a radio show, and we'll throw you on, and we'll have ourselves quite the time. No, we'll have NHL playoffs to break down. We'll have a Game 7 to break down. We'll have even who knows? We may have some more Game 7 hockey to break down as well. So should be a fun one coming up on a Monday edition of the show. Hey, by the way, I have had a lot of people blow up my phone on this one because the guy does have ties to Utah State. Jared Shaw, who played at Utah State, his last year at Utah State was 2014. He actually, I believe, led the team in scoring that year. He was actually, a lot of people don't really, this was kind of the tail end of the Stu Morrill run when Utah State had gotten into the Mountain West and wasn't particularly great. But Jared Shaw was a part of that team, and Jared Shaw was playing overseas in Indonesia and apparently brought in some cannabis, candies? Essentially THC, some THC candies, which here, look, I'm not condoning any of that, but here in the United States isn't necessarily considered a big deal, but in Indonesia, it's a very, very big deal. And he, of course, with Indonesia and their strict gun laws, was arrested after police raided his apartment there in Jakarta, seized 132 pieces of the cannabis candies, and he could very well end up being given the death penalty in Indonesia. It was a total of 30.6 ounces. They're still investigating, but he was immediately released from the team and received a lifetime ban from the league, the basketball league that he was playing in. There are 530 people on death row in Indonesia for drug-related crimes, including 96 foreigners.
Last time, by the way, they conducted executions for such crime was 2016.
So it has happened, and if nothing else, he may very well be, even if he doesn't get the death penalty, he may very well end up being in Indonesia prison for life. Could be a life sentence. So, moral of the story, kids. Don't be taking drugs into Indonesia. What was that movie, Lloyd?
Broke Down Palace. I was just going to bring it up. Hey, yep. if you want to get a little bit of an idea of what he's going to be dealing with, do yourself a favor and go rent the movie Broke Down Palace.
Yeah, because we're not talking about white-collar prison. We're talking about Indonesia prison. And
by the way, to do something like this where you're trying to actually traffic some drugs is bad enough. You have to, in Indonesia, you actually have to worry about people trying to sneak drugs into your bags anyways.
Your bags, yeah.
Yes. Like that's like a place I don't even want to visit.
No, I want no part of that.
Nope. That's a place I will avoid.
Yeah, whoever says, you know what, we ought to take a trip to Indonesia. Nope. Hard pass on that. Oh, thank you. All right, that wraps it up for us. Big thanks, everyone, down here at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. They've got some incredible savings, some incredible vehicles, all priced to move. It is Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. Jake and the crew ready to help you out. Upside down, credit, whatever the issue is. They don't care. They're going to get you squared away. Great lease options available for you. It's all here at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.